Hello, welcome again to the second installment of our Patriots podcast. And we do have Amit Dwivedi again. Hello, Amit. Say hello.
Hey, Street. How's it going?
So let's, before we get into the with 2 more days for the draft, and we have a lot of defensive discussion on the Patriots. But before we get to the defensive wants for the Patriots, let's quickly react to the Aaron Rodgers trade to the Jets. I thought they were demanding 2 first-round picks, but looks like they got away with it. And Rodgers is now a Jet, which is going to cause a lot of concern for the Patriots. Your initial thoughts, and then I'll react to that.
Yeah, I mean, I share your concern. We played against him last year, and while he was not at his best, and he didn't his receivers, the young receivers were kind of ramping up. He still figured out a way to beat us when we were playing good. So, and
Right.
given how close the Jets game went with like literally nobody at quarterback last year, and I mean, there's a good chance that just his presence tilts both games in Jets' favors, and we can't afford to do that because Jets is the only team we can confidently have been able to beat in the division, right? So it is definitely a concern. Um, I'm hoping that the Jets, in general ineptness, will save the situation for the Patriots, and plus the fact that Rodgers is known to be a bit selfish, a bit of a jerk, right? So there's a little bit of a locker room chemistry. So I think it depends on how they start. If they start with a few wins, I think they're going to be on a roll because any kind of tensions are going to be forgotten. But if they start with a few losses, there's a potential for it to go a bit sideways. But it's still, I
True.
would much rather that it didn't happen.
True. So I wish it did happen either. But right now, on paper, if you look at it, uh, the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins probably have better squads, better quarterback. Of course, Mac Jones is still the first round pick, and we'll see. We still have to see him in the O'Brien offense, so it remains to be seen. But right now, on paper, it looks like the Jets are one, but there is still a long way to go. There's a draft that's coming up, and then the games still have to be played. The Jets will be on prime time. I think the last I heard, they're going to be on prime time 6 times over the one time they were last year. So there's going to be a lot of pressure being prime time, but Rodgers knows how to deal with it. But Patriots have always had good success against Rodgers. Belichick teams have traditionally caused a lot more concern uh, to Aaron Rodgers. But the Jets also have other things in terms of their defense. So let's see. It remains to be seen. But um, enough of the Jets. Let's get back to the Patriots. Like we talked about in the first podcast, the Patriots do have 11 picks. We definitely know that cornerback is probably one of the weakest spots for the Patriots. Uh, and within the 11 picks, let's see where the Patriots will focus on. Your initial analysis on where they could go. There is the wide receiver group this time is not that very strong, at least in the draft. But I do think that there is other places like cornerback where there is a lot of good, solid players that the Patriots could really focus on in maybe the second round. Maybe I think the first round was probably I don't know. They might just take an who knows? They'll go back on offense to maybe a lineman. But let's see. Your thoughts there?
So I don't know if cornerback is probably the weakest spot on defense. It might be, but I thought heading into last season with JC Jackson leaving, I thought they were doomed. Like, they had two rookies and Jonathan Jones and Jalen Mills as their corners. And I thought they were going to be doomed. And relative to that, I would say they held opponents to less points. They got a bunch of turnovers and all that. So I'm not saying they were great or anything like that, but they were not as bad as one would have thought. Um, so I think there's some merit in these guys, working well. They pick the guys that would work in their system. So I think they've got something pretty good to work with. Hopefully, we'll see some more growth out of the two rookies, two Joneses
Mhm.
from last year, right, which should help as well. What they do
Right.
need is a larger corner, like a corner with size, height, and weight. I mean, all the corners are small, and you know, so you need that matchup corner against the taller receivers. We saw that in the Cincinnati game where T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, especially T. Higgins, are just having their way with
True,
our corners. I mean,
true.
we couldn't do anything. And the
Yeah,
other problem we've had is over the past few years, I would argue, is our pass rush and our defense is pretty good against bad quarterbacks and bad teams. But anytime a legit quarterback comes to play, we have actually a pretty sad record against them. And somehow the pass rush is not there, and the coverage is not there. And I have a feeling the pass rush is not there because they're not going all out attack, because they worry about these good quarterbacks finding holes in their coverage, and so maybe they don't rush with their ears pinned back. So I agree it will help a lot, especially getting a taller corner. And in the first
right.
round, there's a couple that if they're able to get Witherspoon or
Gon-
Gonzalez,
Yes,
I think the, the consensus seems to be those are no-brainers. Like, you should not hesitate. If any of them falls, chances of that happening are pretty low. But I would say corners in play, whether it's first round, second round, third round, somewhere in the first 4 rounds for sure. And I would say they're probably going to draft someone late as well. There's a lot of depth this year, so I won't be surprised if they do two corners or a corner and a safety.
yeah. And there's also Joey Porter Jr. I think so. There's a lot of corners left in the draft. I definitely I'm of the opinion that the right now, if you look at the defensive side of things, this draft may be pretty heavy on good corners available to be taken. The Patriots drafting 14th. Let's see if they will trade up or trade down. Remains to be seen. Every time we know that Belichick does something to get picks later in the draft. But let's
Yeah.
see if he's going to stay with 14 or make a move there. Um, but there's also other areas of concern. I know we with McCourty retiring, there is definitely a gap, not just from the position, but also from a leadership. But I know there are other Patriots players who will step up. Where do you think the Patriots go in terms of on their back end, especially in the safety, if they would make any move getting someone from the draft?
Yeah, I think probably replacing McCurdy is probably going to be the biggest challenge for them, just because he is such a fundamental part of their defense, calling the traffic, knowing all the coverages, and reacting to formations. I mean, it was like almost like having a mini coach on the field. So I think they have to replace McCurdy the player and McCurdy the kind of the field general. I think the second part is going to be a little bit harder. You have to hope that Jonathan Jones and some of these veterans like Duggar. I'm not saying these are all necessarily McCurdy types. McCurdy was a free safety. The Duggar and all that are more of strong safety types. But I think they'll have to come up with some combination of different players. It's not like a one-on-one swap. Somehow replacing that leadership. And in terms of his talent, I mean, McCurdy was a corner who got converted to safety. And given that
Right.
increasingly all the NFL offices are geared towards more and more passing, I think that whole concept of corner who becomes a safety, like having that corner speed at the safety spot, but the sure tackling capability and all that, and someone who's like really smart and all that, might be appealing to them. Now, this is not a very strong draft for safeties, so they might dip into a couple of corners. I've heard names like Riley Moss and the Martin kid from Illinois. I mean, there's like 2 or 3 corners, who'd
Very
go in
strong as
who could
right.
potentially, right? So that could be their way of replacing from a player perspective, and then for the leadership perspective, they'll have to rely on the veterans, several veterans
Right.
on that.
I mean, we still have Slater and other people around. I mean, not from the defensive standpoint. You just have Judon, who's definitely a vocal.
No, but you
Maybe
need the back, right? I mean, Judon's on the line.
on
You
the
need
line, and then from the back end, let's see, maybe Jonathan Jones. And Duggar is definitely stepping up.
Phillips.
Um,
Phillips is pretty. I mean, he's been there for three.
yes, yeah, the guy from San Diego. So I do think that they're there. So apart from these two positions, um, going back to the front,
Mm-hmm.
where do you think our Patriots needs? We obviously have Judon. There's Barmore. I mean, there's a lot of other
There's some
areas
pieces.
that.
Well, I think, I mean, a smart team, what it does is it doesn't just draft only for immediate need, but also for need that will pop up in a year or two. So I could make a case for pretty much every position other than, I mean, in addition to corner and safety, right? So it could be interior D line, it could be, on the edge, it's like a pass rusher, it could be, an off the ball linebacker, right? So those are kind of the three spots. I can make a case for all three. What I'll say is this: I think everyone's saying that this draft is, there's only like 8, 10 blue chip talent, and after that, it's not like as many like true first rounders. So that's the case. I think it's going to be hard for Patriots to trade down even if they want to, right?
Right.
So I think they have two choices. One is they trade up for someone that they like because everyone's trying to trade down and they might get a good deal, or they stay put and they're forced to select someone, right? Even though they would prefer to trade down. And if that happens, I don't think there's any offensive tackle or a receiver who's going to still be on the board and who's going to be worth taking at that spot. The tackle class, even the top guys, there's some there's some doubt on each and every one of them, and even the receivers, they're good but not great. So,
Oh, I
and
think this is probably the worst receiver class. I think in the last few years. I think.
or rather,
What is it?
you'll find some okay options in the second, third rounds as well, right? So I am now increasingly leaning towards they're going to, if they're forced to stay put, I think it's going to be a pass rusher or it's going to be a corner,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, to
So
me,
those are in the first round, I think.
yeah, to me, the best classes, at least you would say, the cornerbacks, and I do think that's very heavy. Not sure if the Patriots. I know they have their 14th pick. Do you think they will move up to get one of those guys, especially Witherspoon or Gonzalez? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, yeah, I think, or even a pass rusher, right? Like apparently they
Right.
like Tyson, and if he somehow starts slipping, right? If like four quarterbacks go in the first 10 picks, and a couple of tackles go, and Carter and Anderson, I mean, if one of these guys, or even I don't know, Jalen Carter, I don't think he'll slip, but like if people like that start slipping, and suddenly it's pick number 11 or pick 10, and they have to trade 3 or 4 spots, I think they'll have to give up a third rounder. I think to do that.
Right.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
if everyone's trying to trade down, you might actually find you might find a trade up at a better price than what you normally would. So,
I think this would be unusual for the
that.
Patriots. I think trading up is very, very unusual. And
No,
I think
they've done it. I mean, maybe not that often, but they've done it for Hightower. They did it for Chandler Jones. I think they did it. I might be wrong about this, but I think for like either Daniel Graham, Ben Watson, one of those guys, they might have done it for Ty Warren in the first round. I'm not saying they do it all the time, but when they like someone, they
not
have.
in the last, I would say Hightower was, I mean, that was quite
Well,
many years ago. So
I agree. Yes, they
yes,
have.
but I do think that there is an opportunity. There is a chance that they could trade up depending on the right talent, at least on the defensive side. So I think that's very good. What other things do you think from a defensive aspect? And I know we covered the offensive in the last one. Where else do you think the Patriots need to do a better job? I think we covered most of the defensive positions. Um, but I think 2 days. I think this is going to be. I think we're only going to see what on Thursday, just first and second rounds,
Yeah.
or is it just yeah? So you may not see that many um,
Right.
picks.
We'll do that on Friday, right? So
Yes,
I think,
Friday is the big day.
look, we've all, like, everyone's been saying they need a sideline to sideline fast linebacker, but the linebacker profile has been changing, right? Like these are all lighter guys than what Patriots typically like. So I've kind of given up on that thing. I mean, they seem to be happy with Tavai and Bentley in the middle, and then Uche off the edge. They've invested in this Ronnie Perkins a couple of years ago, so they're hoping he'll pop. I don't think he will, but so linebacker maybe. I think it's more likely that they do something to reinforce either the middle of the defense, give some depth behind Gotcha and Barmore, and or on the edge somewhere. I think the linebacker could be like a late round investment. They just have, I mean, last year, Jacoby Dean, who's the other guy, Devin Lloyd, right? Every year they're linked to these linebackers, and they
Right.
free opportunity to draft them, and they don't. And to be honest, I mean, I see a lot of these guys, these former first rounders, they're kind of like on their second team and all that. So I I'm actually okay with the Patriots passing on these guys. Um,
Yes. And there
it's
won't be. I don't think there's any more. There's more trades that are available to get good defensive players at this point. I think,
right. And
at least not now.
yeah, they also use their safeties to play those roles, right? Especially the physical
Right.
safeties. Duggar, right? Like a semi linebacker-ish role. So instead of like three linebackers, they prefer to have two and then have more safeties on the field, right? So
Right.
can get away with that. All power to them. That just means more speed on the field.
Yeah. So that's good analysis. I mean, this was very in depth, detailed analysis. And Friday is probably the day you're going to see. But again, as you know, this every year draft brings a lot of hope for a lot of teams, but it's not for 2 to 3 years before you really get the complete, I would say, um, understanding of whether the player really is a good fit for the team. There is obviously some rookies who make a big impact. At least even last year, I think we did have good impact from even Cole Strange, at least from the offensive standpoint. He played every game. Got to give credit, and both the Joneses, right? I mean, they
Yeah,
had significant contributions, so they did make an impact for the Patriots. But let's see if this year brings better luck for the Patriots, and then if they
yeah.
could change their fortunes and make the playoffs once again. And
I know.
uh,
I think they need to hit a home run with the draft, honestly. And for me, that would mean getting like five contributors, right? So one, I would say definitely a tackle who can compete for a job sometime during the season. A receiver, they certainly need a good receiver added to the mix. I would say a tight end. It's a very deep tight end class, so I think even in a third, fourth round, they should be able to pick someone pretty good.
right,
A corner for sure, like we discussed, and maybe a pass rusher, right? Or someone
yeah,
else on defense. Like I think
yeah.
if they get
To me,
five people who contribute, I think that would be a great. That'll be a dream come true. That'll be a great class.
yeah, I still think it's a lineman to me, and then the cornerback. The receivers probably from me the. I would think that's the last priority. The tight end, yes, definitely. It is a deep class there too. But let's see if Belichick can pull something out of his hat. I mean, he's had pretty decent drafts. I mean, the only um, position where we've traditionally struggled is the wide receiver. Um, and maybe the running back's not in the first round. I mean, but there are some good
Right.
running backs as well in this
Right.
draft.
Absolutely.
Um, um, let's see if they definitely need to pick a running back to, like we talked in the last one, for
Well, don't
Stevenson.
forget,
So,
don't forget quarterback. I mean, we'll
well,
know this weekend. By the end of this weekend, we'll know how much of a believer Belichick is
I
in
think
the
you and I
Jets.
have been little on the other side of the Mac Jones debate, um,
Right.
in the sense that I think you're still not completely convinced that he's the franchise quarterback. I still think this is his third year under a third offensive coordinator. So this is the year I'm going to measure him to see if he
Right.
can really be the quarterback that can change the fortune for the Patriots. If not, it may be the time. And I think the quarterback class, I think next year is probably the better class than this year. There are
Right.
some good quarterbacks. There is a kid from Kentucky who's making a little more waves. I mean, it's still, I still think it's, you have the top three, right?
Right.
Um, so let's see if they would draft it. I mean, they already have uh, Zappy already there,
Yeah. So
but
so
I don't think they draft a quarterback.
yeah. So Shreya, it does not matter what you or I think about Mac Jones. What matters is what Belichick thinks about him. And
Yeah.
like I said, we'll know this weekend. I I, I think I don't think I don't think they're going to go away from Mac. At least
Mhm.
for this year. But I do think they will add, just as a good best practice, they'll add to the quarterback room somewhere in the first four rounds. I mean, Zappi was the fourth rounder. He was very
Right.
productive in college. And I think if they do draft one, I think they should draft someone who's of a slightly different mold than these pocket passers like Zappy and Mac. I think they need a different type to see how that will work in the system and things like that. So someone who's a little not like a pure runner. You still need someone who's a good passer, but someone who's a little bit more arm strength, athleticism, those kind of things. So fourth round, maybe.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if they can get somebody. Maybe it kind of lights a fire under Mac. I mean, as it is, it should. With
He has Zappy
Zappy did
doing
have
that
a
already.
yes, Zappy already had two good games, and but they simplify the offense for him. So it remains to be seen whether and Bill O'Brien already said everybody starts on a clean slate. So hoping the draft, hoping Mac actually makes a leap, and hoping the rest of the offensive players take a step up. I'm still not convinced with our skill players, especially in the wide receiver. There's still the verdict is still out on Devontae Parker. The verdict is still out on even Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, I'm still not sold on his ability, but remains to be seen. But and I still think Jacoby Myers could have been here, but he's not here. We move on. But I don't think we're going to do anything in the draft, at least from a wide receiver position. Maybe in the later rounds. But they got 11 picks. Let's see what they do with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you'll be watching. I'm sure that we'll be watching. So let's hope to see. Let's find out who the Patriots pick, and then maybe we can do a post analysis. Obviously, it's too early to give a grade because none of these players have set foot on the field for the Patriots. But maybe sometime in the middle of the season, we'll
Sure.
get a pretty good assessment, and then again, as both of us agreed, it'll maybe in 2 to 3 years before they make any significant impact in the roster. So remains to be seen.
Well,
But this was
I'm just
fun. But
hoping.
any final thoughts? Any
Yeah,
final thoughts?
be prepared for anything. I mean, there's supposed to be just an overall uncertainty this year. I know they say that every year, but apparently this year there's teams are less sure of what other teams will do. So there's like more chance for surprises and those kinds of things. As far as Patriots go, so in that way, be prepared for anything. Patriots, all kinds of options are on the table. Trade up, trade down, stay there. Even, if they think there's a good quarterback class or something, then maybe exchange for a future pick. I mean, all kinds of options on the table. So I think as a Patriots fan, be prepared for anything. My only wish is I hope they don't draft a guard, a kicker, a punter, or a defensive tackle who's not Jalen Carter in the first round. I'm
Right.
mentally, and a linebacker too. So I'm mentally resigning myself to like, okay, cornerback, safety, fine if they get like really good ones. Pass rusher, that's great. Obviously tackle. I'm okay with receiver too. I mean, it won't be the end of the world if they get JSN or Zay
I would
Flowers.
rather go for a tight end because I think Hunter Henry
Right.
is good. Hunter Henry doesn't. He's good in the in the red zone. He's good there, but you definitely need a better upgrade from Johnu
The,
Smith.
I agree, but the only problem is at 14. I mean, it's kind of too high for all these. So, ideal scenario is like, let's say you don't get the cornerbacks that you want or the tackles that you want. The ideal scenario is to trade into the early 20s, and you can
Right.
still get a top tight end, or you can still get, someone like maybe Zay Flowers if you don't get JSN, right? But you ideally you don't want to take them at 14 because by jumping from 14 to 20, whatever 22nd or something, I mean they get at least a third rounder, or maybe a late second rounder, right? That's kind of like a
Right.
freebie. So other teams have to play ball. All of that has to work out. So I think as a Patriots fan, let's hope they max it all, and more importantly, they pick players that actually end up contributing. At least I'm looking for 4 to 5 players that will end up contributing. That would be a success.
Right. Right. That's a success. I mean, all 11 players are never going to contribute. So, all right, let's like I said, strap our seatbelts and get ready for the Patriots draft on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'll do a post after that. All right. Thank you so much, Amit, and it was a pleasure.
Same here. Take care.
Bye.